Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say might just flip the way you handle disrespect for the rest of your life. Most people think they know what to do when someone disrespects them. They clench their fists, tighten their jaw, raise their voice, and get ready to fire back. That's instinct, that's emotion, that's pride talking, and pride will get you applause from the crowd, but failure in the moment. Because disrespect doesn't need your reaction, it wants it. That's how it grows. That's how it wins. Let me ask you something. When someone disrespects you really gets under your skin, what do you feel first? Anger, hurt, embarrassment, maybe even shame. That's natural. But natural doesn't mean necessary. See, the most dangerous thing about disrespect is not the words or actions themselves, it's what they awaken in you. If you're not careful, someone else's lack of control can take control of you. And if they can control you with their chaos, they own you in that moment. Now, you might say, I'm not letting anyone disrespect me. But I'm not telling you to let it slide. I'm telling you to take the higher ground, not the weaker ground, the higher one. And here's why. You can't win a battle with someone who already lost control of themselves by losing control of yourself too. Disrespect is a test, a mirror. It shows you how strong your inner world really is. Most people spend all their time working on their image, how they look, how they talk, how they walk. But few work on their center, that place inside that doesn't shake when storms come, and disrespect. That's a storm, sometimes small, sometimes strong, but always a test. You want to pass that test. Start by getting curious, not reactive. Ask yourself, why did that moment bother me so much? Why did that person say what they said? What are they really trying to get from me? Because make no mistake, disrespect is often a performance. People throw disrespect like a fishing line, hoping you'll bite, pull, thrash, and tangle yourself up in their drama. But if you pause even for 2 seconds and let the line drop, they get nothing, no reaction, no reward. Let me give you an example. Think of a time someone said something to you that felt like a slap to the face. Maybe it was public, maybe it was private. You felt your chest tighten, your voice rise in your throat, and your hands twitch with adrenaline. That's the body preparing for battle. But that's also the moment that defines you. What if, instead of snapping back, you just looked at them? No anger, no sarcasm, just stillness. Calm eyes, you say nothing, you breathe. That moment, that's power, that's poise. That's the kind of strength people don't forget because it makes them uncomfortable. Not because you were threatening, but because you didn't give them control. There's a phrase I live by. If you don't control your emotions, someone else will. That's the trap, you see. Disrespect isn't always about humiliation. Sometimes it's about manipulation. People push your buttons not because they're powerful, but because they don't know how to deal with their own pain, so they throw it at you, hoping you'll carry it for them. Don't pick it up. Be curious, not just about them but about you. Why does that person's opinion mean so much to you? Why does that tone trigger you? What wound is still open that made that disrespect feel so sharp? That's where real strength starts, not in the comeback, but in the self-reflection. And look, I know what you're thinking. That sounds good, but in the real world, I can't let people walk all over me. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, don't respond instantly. Take a breath. Look at the situation. Is it worth your peace? Is it worth your energy? Is it even about you? 9 times out of 10, it's not. And that 10th time, you'll handle it better if you've paused first. So the next time disrespect shows up in a comment, a look, a gesture, don't fight it with fists. Don't fuel it with fire. Fight it with focus, with clarity, with control. Because when you keep your power, when you hold your ground without stomping it, you win. Not just in the moment, but in the long run. Stay sharp. Stay curious. Stay in control. That's step 1, control the first reaction. That's where the whole game changes, not the 5th reaction, not what you say an hour later. It's that first second, the space between what someone says or does and what you feel rising up inside you. That's where the decision is made. Do I control this moment, or does this moment control me? See, when someone disrespects you, It's like they're throwing a match at dry grass. If you're not careful, that spark lights a wildfire. Your anger, your pride, your ego, they all ignite. And before you know it, you've said something you regret, done something you can't undo, and given away your power without even realizing it. That's the cost of a reckless first reaction. Now, let me be clear, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel something. Of course, you're going to feel something. You're human. It's not about suppressing the feeling. It's about not letting that feeling make the decisions for you. People who can't control their reactions are easy to control. All someone has to do is press the right button, and you explode. You yell, you fight, you post. You push back in all the wrong ways. And when the smoke clears, you're the one left cleaning up the mess. Why? Because you let their energy write your script. But what if, in that same moment, instead of reacting, you paused, you took a breath, you said nothing, you watched, you let the feeling come, but you didn't act on it. You took 1 second to choose your response instead of giving them one. That's where strength lies, in the pause, in the stillness, in that space between the stimulus and your response. That's where you decide what kind of person you are. Not a puppet, not a product of someone else's dysfunction. A leader, a person of self-respect. You've probably heard this before. Don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. And disrespect. That's the most temporary thing in the world. Someone could be having a bad day, lashing out from insecurity, projecting their own fear or failure onto you. And if you meet that energy head on with rage, you just validated it. You just said, you get to control how I feel. But when you control the first reaction, when you stay calm, while everything around you is trying to pull you into chaos, you send a different message. You show that your peace isn't up for grabs. You show that your worth isn't dictated by somebody else's words. That's the mark of maturity. That's the mindset of mastery. Here's the thing: anyone can respond with emotion. That takes no training, no discipline. You just react. But it takes wisdom to pause, to analyze, to respond with purpose. And that doesn't make you weak. That makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Because now your response is calculated. Now your words are chosen, not thrown. Now your presence commands respect, not because you demand it, but because you don't need to beg for it. Let's be honest, life's going to test you. People are going to test you, not once, not twice, but over and over. You can't control how the world shows up, but you can control how you show up. That's your job. That's your responsibility. Because that first reaction, that's where the real fight begins. And if you win there, the rest gets a whole lot easier. So the next time someone steps to you with disrespect, pause, breathe, choose. Don't give them your control. Don't give them your peace. That first moment is yours. Own it. Understand it's not about you. That right there is one of the hardest truths to accept when you're in the middle of being disrespected. Because in that moment, it feels personal, it feels sharp, it feels targeted. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence, mocks your ideas, talks down to you, ignores your value, and you feel it, like a punch to the chest. Your mind goes, why me? What did I do to deserve that? And the more you replay it, the more it stings. But here's the truth that sets you free. Most of the time, it's not even about you. When someone disrespects you, they're showing you a reflection of themselves. Their mood, their pain, their insecurity, their lack of self-awareness, that's what's talking. Disrespect is often just a projection, a mirror that reflects not who you are, but who they are underneath the surface. And once you understand that, you stop internalizing every insult. You stop carrying around someone else's dysfunction like it's your responsibility to fix. Think about this. How often have you seen people lash out at others simply because they're overwhelmed, stressed, or insecure? Maybe you've done it too, snapped at someone you care about when you were tired, frustrated, or afraid. It didn't mean they deserved it. It just meant you were going through something, and they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. That doesn't justify it, but it explains it. And once you see that in yourself, it becomes easier to see it in others. Some people operate from a place of pain so deeply that they can't help but bleed on people who didn't cut them. They don't know how to process their fear, their envy, their self-doubt, so they offload it onto the next person who triggers it. And if you take it personally, you're playing into their broken story. You're stepping into a role they wrote for you, one where you feel less than, one where you react, one where you carry what isn't yours. But when you understand that their behavior isn't about you, you reclaim your peace. You stop overanalyzing their words and start recognizing their patterns. You don't ask, "Why did they treat me like this?" You ask, "What are they trying to release?" It's a shift from ego to empathy, not to excuse disrespect, but to understand it doesn't define you. And let's be clear, understanding it's not about you doesn't mean you tolerate bad behavior. It means you respond from strength, not from wound. When you stop making it personal, you gain perspective. You get to say, "I see what this is and I'm not letting it live in me." That's how you set boundaries without bitterness. That's how you walk away without resentment, because you're not trying to prove your worth to someone who can't even see their own. The moment you realize that not every disrespectful act deserves your reaction is the moment you free yourself. You save your energy, you hold your head high, and you move differently, not in defense, but in dignity. You stop letting every insult pull you into an argument. You stop needing to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The people who try to tear others down are often fighting a war inside that has nothing to do with you. Let them fight it. Don't enlist in their battle. Choose peace. Choose poise. Choose to see beyond the surface. Because when you understand that it's not about you, you protect your energy, your purpose, and your self-worth. And that, right there, is the beginning of emotional freedom. Use silence as a weapon. Not the kind of silence that comes from fear or weakness. Know the kind of silence that comes from strength, from control, from understanding that not every attack deserves a response. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. We live in a world where everyone wants the last word, the loudest voice, the final clap back. We think that by saying something clever, sharp, or louder than the other person, we win. But the truth is, silence often speaks louder than any words ever could, because silence is presence. Silence is control. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially those who thrive on chaos and attention. When someone disrespects you, they often want a reaction. That's what fuels them. They want to know they got under your skin, that they made you mad, threw you off balance, pulled you into their level, and when you respond emotionally, when you argue, shout, or defend yourself in desperation, you're giving them exactly what they wanted. Your silence, though, that denies them that power. Think about it. When someone throws shade at you and you don't flinch, that hits different. It's unsettling, it says, "I heard you, and I'm still unbothered." That kind of energy can't be faked. It has to come from deep confidence. From knowing who you are, from choosing peace over pride. Silence creates space. It gives you room to think, observe, and decide what's really worth your time. And in that space, a lot of things reveal themselves. You start to see the other person more clearly. You notice their patterns, their insecurity, their need for control. You realize this isn't even about me, this is about their need to feel important. And once you see that, you stop taking the bait. Let's be real, not every disrespectful moment deserves your energy. You don't need to swing at every pitch. Sometimes the most powerful move is to let it pass, not because you're scared, not because you're unsure, but because you value your peace more than proving a point. Some people aren't ready for a mature conversation. They're not looking to understand, they're looking to provoke. And when you stay silent, you're telling them, "I don't argue with noise." You refuse to meet them where they are. You stay grounded, centered, still. There's also a silence that allows you to respond later when you're ready, when you've had time to think, when your emotions have cooled. That silence is strategic. It protects your integrity. It makes sure that when you do speak, your words are intentional and not impulsive. Silence is also a boundary. It says, "This conversation is over," without you having to raise your voice or explain yourself. It says, I'm not here to entertain disrespect. Without putting on a show, it protects your dignity when someone else tries to strip it. But don't confuse silence with avoidance. It's not about running away from hard conversations or pretending like things don't bother you. It's about knowing when your voice will be effective and when your silence will say more. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, test you, disrespect you, don't be so quick to jump in. Breathe. Watch, stay silent. Let them reveal themselves. Let their own words echo in the room. Let their own energy bounce back at them without yours to absorb it. Because sometimes silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of power, full of discipline, full of wisdom. And in a world that moves too fast, that reacts too quick, your ability to pause, to remain still, to stay silent, that's what separates you from the rest. That's your strength. That's your weapon. Use it well. Speak with measured authority. When the time comes to speak, let your words carry weight. Not noise, not volume, but weight. Because it's not about how loud you speak, it's about how clear, how calm, and how purposeful your words are. People respect presence. They feel intention. And when you speak with control, you shift the energy in the room. Let's be honest, most people either overreact or shut down when they feel disrespected. Some blow up, yelling to make a point. Others hold it all in, trying to keep the peace but building quiet resentment. But there's a third way, the balanced way. The way of someone who has done the inner work. Who knows that you don't need to match someone's chaos to be heard. You just need to mean what you say. When you speak with measured authority, you're not begging to be respected, you're commanding it, without ever raising your voice. You're not trying to overpower anyone, you're standing in your truth. And truth doesn't have to shout. It speaks for itself. It's firm, it's composed, it's rooted. Measured authority starts with self-control. You don't let your emotions hijack your voice. You don't speak just to react, you speak to clarify, to correct, to set boundaries with clarity. You've already done the most important work. You've paused, you've assessed the situation, and now you respond not from ego, but from principle. Here's what that sounds like. I don't appreciate the way you just spoke to me. That tone is not acceptable in this conversation. If you want to talk, we can talk respectfully, otherwise, this ends here. Simple. Clear, calm, no insults, no threats, just truth with backbone. That's how you let someone know you're not the one, and you don't have to explain it twice. It's also about posture, not just physical, but emotional. How you carry yourself when you speak. Are your words defensive, or are they grounded in self-worth? Measured authority shows that you respect yourself enough to speak without anger, and you respect the other person enough not to demean them even when they've disrespected you. And here's the thing, people listen differently when they see you're not triggered, you're not spiraling, you're not rattled, you're steady. That makes them pause, it makes them think. It makes them realize they're not in control of the conversation, you are. Not by force, but by presence. One of the biggest myths out there is that calmness is weakness, that unless you go off, you're letting people walk all over you. But the truth is, calm people are often the most dangerous. Not because they're passive, but because they're precise. They choose their words like a surgeon chooses a scalpel, carefully, intentionally, effectively. They don't need to be loud to be clear. They don't need to threaten to be firm. And when you operate like that, you don't just demand respect, you teach people how to treat you. You model what strength looks like. You show that emotional maturity isn't soft, it's powerful, because it takes more strength to stay in control than to lose it. It takes more courage to speak truthfully than to explode. So when the moment comes to speak, let your voice reflect your value. Speak slowly, speak clearly, speak with intention. You don't have to rush. You don't have to raise your tone. The message will land because it's real, because it's grounded, because it comes from a place of authority that isn't borrowed from anger, it's built from self-respect. That's the kind of voice people remember. That's the kind of presence that commands a room without ever demanding it. Let your words be few, but let them be powerful. That's measured authority, and it's one of your greatest tools. Protect your peace at all costs. There comes a point when you realize that your peace is more valuable than your pride, more important than winning an argument, more powerful than proving a point. Because peace isn't just a feeling, it's a foundation. It's the base you stand on that keeps you steady when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. When someone disrespects you, the first thing they try to take from you is your inner calm. They want you reactive, shaken, angry, off your game, because when you lose your peace, you lose clarity, you lose control, and once they've got you in that emotional chaos, they can steer the moment any way they want. But if you hold onto your peace, truly protect it, they can't touch you. They may shout, provoke, manipulate, but it bounces right off. Why? Because peace is armor. It shields you from unnecessary damage. But here's the truth: peace doesn't protect itself. You've got to defend it. You've got to choose it every single time someone tests you. And that's not easy. It takes discipline. It takes strength. It takes humility. Because peace doesn't always look like silence in a quiet room. Sometimes peace is walking away from someone who refuses to respect your boundaries. Sometimes peace is saying, "No, I won't keep explaining myself." Sometimes peace is letting someone think they're right, just so you don't lose yourself trying to prove them wrong. Not everyone deserves access to you. Let me say that again. Not everyone deserves access to your mind, your energy, your spirit. If someone's constantly bringing negativity into your life, constantly pulling you into drama, constantly stepping over lines and calling it a joke, you don't owe them your presence. You don't owe them your attention. Protecting your peace means knowing when to create distance and not feeling guilty for doing it. People will say you've changed when you stop responding to chaos. They'll say you're cold when you stop entertaining dysfunction. That's fine. Let them talk. You're not here to live in reaction mode. You're here to build something: peace, purpose, a life that makes sense to your soul. And that can't happen if every day you're fighting to defend your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Protecting your peace also means knowing what conversations are worth your time. Every battle isn't yours. Every insult doesn't deserve a reply. Every challenge doesn't need your involvement. Maturity is learning to let some things go, not because you're weak, but because you're focused. You've got goals, you've got growth ahead, and you don't have time to be dragged into emotional messes that don't feed your future. Think of your peace like a home. Would you let just anyone walk in, track dirt on the floor, and start yelling in your living room? Of course not. You'd lock the door. You'd say, "Not here, not today." That's how you need to guard your inner space. Just because someone's loud doesn't mean they're right. Just because they're close to you doesn't mean they're healthy for you. And just because they've been around doesn't mean they get to stay, not if they threaten your peace. When you make peace a priority, you show up better in every part of your life. You think more clearly. You move with intention. You lead with wisdom, not emotion. You start attracting better energy, not because the world changed, but because you did. You raised your standard. You made a decision. No more chaos. No more letting disrespect disturb your spirit. That's how you protect your peace, not once, not just when it's convenient, but daily, consistently, unapologetically, because your peace is your power and nothing's worth more than that. Move forward without carrying it. Disrespect hurts, there's no denying that. It leaves a mark. A word said the wrong way, a tone that cuts, a gesture that devalues you. Those things stick. And the natural tendency is to hold on, to replay the moment, to analyze every little part of it, to let it rent space in your mind long after the situation has passed. But here's the truth: if you want to live in peace, in strength, in clarity, you can't carry every insult into your next chapter. At some point, you've got to put it down and move forward. Carrying disrespect is like dragging a heavy bag everywhere you go. You might keep moving, sure, but your energy is slower. Your decisions are clouded. Your heart is guarded. You're reacting to people who haven't even done anything wrong because you're still carrying the weight of someone else's mistake. That's how cycles start. That's how hurt multiplies. But here's the key: you don't let go for them. You let go for you. You move forward so that your spirit can stay light, your mind can stay focused, and your future isn't shaped by someone else's dysfunction. Carrying disrespect only keeps you tied to the moment it happened, and you were made for more than that moment. There's a difference between remembering the lesson and reliving the pain. You're allowed to learn. You're supposed to remember who showed you their character, but that doesn't mean you carry resentment. That doesn't mean you build walls so high nobody can reach your heart. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to relive the pain every time it crosses your mind. One of the strongest things you can do is to keep your heart open after it's been bruised. Not naive, but open. You don't need to become cold to stay safe. You don't need to mirror their disrespect to protect yourself. You set boundaries, yes. You protect your peace, yes. But then you move, you heal, you grow. You don't keep dragging that moment into your tomorrow. Sometimes we confuse moving forward with weakness, like if we don't hold onto the anger, then we're letting someone off the hook. But forgiveness, release, growth, that's not about excusing them. That's about freeing yourself. You're not denying what happened, you're just refusing to let it own you anymore. It's not always instant. Sometimes you'll think you've moved on, and then a memory brings it back. That's normal, that's human. But every time it comes up, remind yourself, I'm not going back there. I've outgrown that moment, and you breathe and you keep moving. That's how healing works, step by step, day by day, thought by thought. Also, remember, your value doesn't decrease because someone else couldn't see it. Their disrespect is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their vision, their judgment, their own internal conflict. So why carry that around? Why make it part of your story when it was never about you to begin with? You weren't created to be bitter. You were made to be whole, and wholeness requires release. You release so you can receive. Better conversations, healthier relationships, clearer thinking, stronger self-worth. But that can't happen if your hands are full of pain from the past. So make the choice, not because it's easy, not because it feels fair, but because your future is too important to live chained to what someone said or did. Let them go. Let the moment go. Take the lesson. Leave the rest. Walk forward with your head high, your spirit light, and your purpose clear. You're not stuck. You're not broken. You're not less than. You're rising. You're evolving. And you don't need to carry anything that doesn't belong in your next level. Let it go and move forward free.